In this video, we're going to look at how to enter a mileage claim. So if you haven't already synced your items, then that's something that you would do, but my user has, so everything is up to date. So use your hamburger menu at the top, click on Expenses, and at the bottom you have New, Waiting or Approved. So all expenses, whether they're expense lines or mileage lines, will be within this same screen. So anything that's new is sitting here that hasn't been submitted yet. Anything that's been submitted is in here. And anything, if you did have approved, would be here. But as most expenses go to completed, it's unlikely you'd have anything in there. So I'm going to add an expense at the top. And you have the usual flags that you would have in your desktop. So whether it's urgent or not, and if so, why. The date of your expense. I'm using an Android. This might look different on an Apple in terms of the calendar functionality, but the principles are the same. Who's raising it, how much it's going to be for, that will build up as we build up our claim, and then any notes that you might wish to add for your expense. This is an optional field. So that's our expense header, if you like, our mileage header. If we wanted to add expense lines, we would come to the Expenses tab, but we're going to be focusing on mileage. We have done a separate video for expenses. So in here, I'm going to add a mileage claim. And at this point, you've got the option to add an attachment. You can even add a journey. So if you've done your journey from A to B and you haven't got it stored anywhere, then you could add that at this point, or you can just record your mileage manually. So we'll have a look at those options in a second. So whether you have a receipt attached or not, the details of your claim. Your project, you can either search for something or you can just use your drop down. If you pick the wrong one, just highlight the line and you'll see this little black X, which allows you to then take that out and change it. Same for your project item. Select the vehicle, if it's a company car or your own. Passengers, if you're allowing passenger claiming for mileage. At this section, we've got an option. We can either enter our distance manually, or if you're using Google API, you can actually record journeys. So the other way to do it would be to select on your Journey tab, and then we'll talk about where you can record journeys separately. But within your journey, you might have a list. So when you click your drop down, you can see your train station journey. I've saved that as a favourite. It might be that you don't have your journey, but you can see that this one equates to 26.3 miles. If you haven't got a journey and you want to add one at this point, you can click this Add Journey button, at which point you can say what your information is, so what your journey was. Whether you wish this to be just a one-off current journey, or if this is one that you might use quite regularly, you might choose to add it to your favourites. Whether it's business miles or personal miles as well. We're working on the assumption that most mileage is going to be business miles. So you could add in a journey manually, whether it's a return or not, or you can use this start location at the bottom to add in your details. So that brings up a postcode finder. You can't change your longitude, latitude or your date because it will do the automatic finding of the longitude and latitude, and this is just a journey. It doesn't need your specific date. So where you came from and where you're going to. So again, when you come to save it, it will soon tell you if that wasn't a valid postcode. And it's entered your mileage automatically. So then you can save that. If you did want to look at the map, it's just simply a point A to point B map. So this isn't going to include any diversions that you may have gone on. It's only going to look at the distance between the two using Google. So if you haven't got a Google API key, you won't be able to use this. So if you're happy, save your journey, and then you can see at the bottom the journey that you've just entered. Okay, so we're going to save that line. So there's my mileage sitting there waiting. This orange circle here shows that it's not been synced or submitted or anything, so we're just going to come back to our details tab, and we're now going to save our mileage, and we're going to save and submit it. So that's now come into our new tab. We have this little green partial tick which shows that it's been submitted but it hasn't yet been synced. Again, an orange sync kind of showing it's not ready yet, it's not within WAP. The green arrows show that it is. So if I was to look in this user's home screen, they have an expense here that hasn't yet been submitted, but it has been synced and it's therefore in their desktop. So this new ID, M5, that's the mobile ID. To sync it to the desktop, simply use these two arrows at the top right. They're your syncing arrows, which has changed in version 20, and click on Sync Waiting. It will run through the sync process for you. And once it's synced, it takes you back to your expense screen. If you click on Waiting, you've now got M5 at the top. And if we were to do a new search in our home screen, we now have a new expense waiting on our desktop. So that's how to enter a mileage claim.